what's going on, you guys? Welcome back to Forgiven AF Podcast. You guys know that we use this as marketing material for our nonprofit Second Chance Mentors here in Mansfield, where we work with the kids that have been kicked out of school. Saturday, we did community service. It was really cool. I think we had 14 boys show up. We have like an adopted highway that we went and, the kids had their vests on. We looked like a DUI crew probably walking down the highway, cleaning up all the mess and trash in our like adopted highway that we've done. And it was good. We went to lunch afterwards, and it was cool because it was real. A lot of the boys and the men really were connecting this time, like more than normal. I tried to have a boy and a mentor kind of work together so that there was really good conversations. It was really cool to see the communication going on between the men and the boys. So it was awesome. And all the kids have now earned their shoes. So within the next week or two, we'll be taking each one of the kids that all have they had good attendance. They all did their sit-down meeting with a mentor. They all completed their community service, and none of them had any run-ins with the police or any trouble in school. So now they've all earned their end-of-the-year school shoes. So we'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks. So we're excited about that. That's probably one of my favorite parts of the program is taking the kids to get their shoes. But anyways, I just want to give you a quick check-in on what's going on in the program. But I'm really excited about this episode today. I have Robert Borelli with me today. We met at the Flying Squirrel, which is a coffee shop here in Mansfield. I had actually kind of known who he was already because there was a couple copies of his book one day on the counter. And, I had kind of thumbed through it and did like a little bit of research to find out who he was, because what I loved about it was his accent. Because, I grew up in Philadelphia and I used to go up to the Bronx a lot. And I know he's from Brooklyn, but I've kind of been raised around, there's a lot of Italians in Philadelphia. So it kind of felt like home hearing that accent. But Robert, thank you for coming on the show today. I'm really excited.
Well, listen, I appreciate you allowing me to be on your show, and I really appreciate what you're doing for the kids, man. That is awesome, man. Thank you for it.
Yeah, that means a lot. And really, I try to say like our tagline, though it might sound a little bit corny, is be who you needed, because I feel like, and you might even be able to agree with this, that sometimes growing up, and I had a great father around, it's not like I was missing out on a dad, but there were things that I got excited and involved in that my dad didn't really have any sort of, advice for, I guess is a good way to put it. So I try to start this program so these kids can see, these kids that are starting to get into drugs and are starting to get into things like that we can show them like, look, I went down that path. Let me show you why that's not a good idea, Yeah. But if you don't mind, could you just kind of give us like a quick sort of like rundown, or it doesn't have to be quick, just so kind of like who you are, because so Robert wrote a book that I'm really excited about that we want to push, and I want you guys to get a copy and read it. It's really good. I'm not a reader, and I'm 75% of the way through the book. So for me, that's like I read it 3 times, like I'm not a big reader. I kept looking for the audiobook, and maybe that'll come out next, because they'll have you you can actually read the book into it, But anyways, if you could just kind of take over and just let our listeners know who you are and where you're from.
Okay, my name is Robert Borelli. That wasn't always my name. That's another subject. We'll get into that maybe another episode or something. But anyway, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, in the heart of the Gambino crime family neighborhood. Didn't know at a young age that was a Gambino crime family neighborhood. I just knew there was some younger guys that had a club, a storefront club down the block from where I lived, and they seemed to get a lot of respect from everybody in the neighborhood. Really didn't know them too much, and I could identify myself with 3 different types of people in my life at that age. And of course, my mom and dad, hardworking people, legitimate people, come from a poor neighborhood. They had a hard time making ends meet, and a lot of stuff that was happening in the home, of a few arguments here and there. Most of the time would be about finances. We couldn't get the kids school or whatever it was, and things like that. So at an early age, I didn't want to be like my mom and dad. Then we had, a little bit older, we had guys coming that were a little bit older than me, coming back from the Vietnam War. And some of them were all messed up with either drugs or alcohol, and I'd see them in the streets, and I didn't want to be like them. And then I seen the guys down the block that had kind of everything to get, all the things that I would have wanted for myself growing up.
Yeah.
Nice clothes, jewelry, money in their pocket. Every now and then a pretty girl coming by, car. In my neighborhood, cars were very seldom. People didn't have money for cars and stuff like that. My family, every now and then would get a car. And well, anyway, long story short, that's the type of setting I went, and I gravitated towards those guys. And I was one of those little rough, tough kids. Didn't want to. I didn't know the term bullying. We used to call it, you didn't want to get picked on.
Yeah.
So I was one of the smaller guys from the neighborhood, and if people picked on me, I would do whatever I had to do to make sure that they didn't want to pick on me anymore.
You said something that I was listening to, and it said I had to either, because about walking through different like rivals' neighborhoods, you said you had to learn to either, it was like fight or run, right? Like, or was it something like that?
Yeah, the fight or flight.
Yeah, fight or flight. That's what you said. Because you said back then there was a lot of like gang fights was like a big thing, right?
Yeah. Actually, they made a movie out of it. I think in the '80s called Warriors, and it depicted the Brooklyn neighborhood of gang fights and stuff like that. So everybody had people from the neighborhood, younger kids who would stay on the corners and hang out a little bit, and you formed like a little bit of a gang,
You know what's crazy? I feel like a lot of times gangs are depicted as being something that was like started in like more like the black community, but it definitely originated more in the old Italian white neighborhoods, huh?
Well, the Little Rascals.
Yeah.
The Bowery Boys. I mean, these were little gangs.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
You stood in the neighborhood, and those are the shows that I watched when I was a kid. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was normal. I didn't think that was a bad thing. And it wasn't that we were bad or doing anything crazy. I mean, we did some stupid stuff, But so if you every maybe 4 blocks, radius of 4 blocks, you would have a different gang, different neighborhood and stuff like that. So when you walked into somebody else's neighborhood, you knew there was going to be trouble. So yeah, that's when either you had to fight good or run real fast. And sometimes you had to do both. You had to fight a little bit, and then when you get outnumbered, you got to run.
That's funny. So then how did you start getting into like the mafia lifestyle? And then I know at the time to you it wasn't thought of as like the mafia lifestyle. You're just thinking of that's just kind of what the guys in the neighborhood do. But did they take you into like under their wing at a young age, or how did that start?
Yeah, I started. They seen that I was a little tough. I wouldn't let people pick on me, and I was a fighter kind of kid, scrappy young kid, and they admired that. And when they had the club, I would go there, and they would let me go in and shoot pool with them. They had a pool table there. And then as I started hanging out with them a little bit more, they would make me do a little errands for them, run to a store here and there, and pick up supplies that they needed for a card game that they were going to have in the back. And then after a while, they would let me work the card game. In other words, I'd serve sandwiches. Something like if you've seen The Sopranos, or even I think there's another movie called Goodfellas, they show a little bit of that there. And that's how I came. If you look at the story about Henry Hill and Goodfellas, I mean, that would be a good depiction of me growing into that lifestyle.
That's exactly what I think of when you tell your story. It's exactly, I think of Henry Hill, and he started off with, they would give him cigarettes. He would sell some cigarettes around town, and then start collecting money from gambling debts and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I did. I did fireworks in the beginning. I would sell fireworks, make a couple of dollars for myself. I'd serve sandwiches at one of the card games and make a couple of dollars in tips. And then, as you keep going on and get a little bit older, they give you a little bit more to do, and they start trusting you. They build a relationship with you. And, if you think about it, you talk about mentorship, and that's kind of what they did. I call it recruiting, but you guys call it mentoring.
No, that's exactly what I think of. Whether, like, outside of the, I hate to say, like, organized crime side of it, right? Like the illegal activities, which was there good morals, or was there good teachings involved in all of it,
Well, I don't know how, if you say, well, at that point in time, you got to remember the stuff that they did in the neighborhood was numbers. So if you wanted to play now, of course, the government
gambling, right?
took a lot of that. It was gambling, but it was like if you got caught with a number slip, you paid a fine. You know what I mean?
So it wasn't like drug dealing.
No, it wasn't big crimes that I seen as a young kid, selling fireworks, working a card game, picking up a policy and numbers. Or like my mom played the number with these guys. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
So it was normal. And stores that had in the neighborhood, you go in there, you play a number.
Yeah.
And of course, it wasn't legal or bookmaking. So you had a guy across the street that had a little front, and he was a bookmaker. So if my dad couldn't make it to the racetrack, he'd give me a couple of dollars with a note in it, and I'd bring it across the street for him to play a couple of horse bets and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
so
you
it
didn't
wasn't
see
even
that.
really frowned. It wasn't even looked at like as far as like criminal activity. It's, I mean, even though it's illegal per se, it's kind of like socially acceptable. It's not like there wasn't drugs and it wasn't like drug dealing at that age.
No, not at that age anyway.
Yeah.
And if it was being done, which I'm sure might have been being done in a different level, I was never part of that.
Well, that's cool that they
as a
weren't
young
like
kid.
trying to push it on you that at a young age. They were kind of letting you still be a boy, you know?
Well, also in the Gambino crime family, drugs was not allowed. You weren't allowed to sell drugs in the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
It changed like in the 60s, 70s. It started changing. I'm talking about when I'm a kid.
Yeah.
So
then what happens next?
well, I mean, then I, hung out, and then they moved the club. The neighborhood started getting bad, and I hate to use the term bad, but basically, it was getting run down. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And some of the clubs moved to different places. And at the age of 17, I was actually had a legitimate job working for an air freight company. And on my way home, I met some guy, and from where I live, because I had moved from Fulton Street to down the road to another part of Fulton Street. But anyway, it was called Cypress Hills. Anyway, I ran into this guy on the bus, and he was telling me about what he does and hanging out and stuff like that. And he invited me to go hang out with him. And I went one weekend to hang out with him a little bit after work on a Friday. And I ended up running into his good friend was one of the big bosses of the neighborhood's son.
Okay.
And that's when I started getting swallowed up, because after a while I left my job and started hanging out with them. I didn't go back to work. And his father would have, every Friday, I remember his father would have a big spread, like meals for everybody. And people would come in, I mean, sharp dresses, guys that you knew got a lot of respect in the neighborhood. And they would sit down and have a meal, and his son would bring me with him. So here I am, like 17 years old, hanging out with all these guys. And I mean, it was just,
it's almost like a movie, right? Like it feels like a movie. You have all these people that you look up to with all this money and all this, and it's just almost surreal.
Yeah, but it was real. That was the whole thing, So I'm thinking, man, this is the life I want.
But isn't this the same group that when didn't a fight go down and someone get hurt? And
well, that was not with those guys. That was with me and Anthony, which was Fat Andy's son. Had our own little crew, and we go into bars and hang out. And then there was a fight that started. One was over a pitcher of beer, and that was our first fight, and that I could remember in that neighborhood. And then there was another fight where later on, and I say it kind of sadly because somebody got killed.
Yeah, but I just remember that part of it of you being on the run for a while.
Yeah, and his father's the one that hid me out from the law. So I felt that now I have an obligation too. And I felt like I was part of the family now, because here's the big boss hiding me out.
He's taking care of you, yeah.
Exactly. So
when did you get, did you end up getting in trouble, down the road, or what? Did you end up going to prison?
Well, numerous times, but what happened is my friend's dad kept me on the land for about a year and a half. I started hanging out in Queens. Now, I was one of those guys that never had tattoos, never had anything, so there was never really took pictures. So it was hard for the state to find me, because they didn't have any picture of me or anything. Yeah. So they just had a name. So I started hanging out, and then my guy who was my big mentor was Nicky Carrazzo, and I started hanging out on Eastern Parkway, and he would give me his car, beautiful Eldorado, man, and I would drive it into the neighborhood. So I started going out to clubs and stuff like that, and another person gets killed in one of the fights that we have in the Broadcasters Inn in Queens. I didn't know I was wanted for it. So I get locked up for possession of a weapon under a phony name, because I had phony ID on me at that time. And Nicky wants me to go back to court one more time. They bailed me out. They wants to go back one more time to get his car out because they impounded his car. I got caught with a gun in his car. And when I went back the second time to court, all the detectives were waiting for me. And I know I was on the lam for a killing for somebody that got stabbed. But now these detectives grab me and say, "Oh, you like to shoot people?" And I'm saying they definitely have the wrong guy. I didn't shoot anybody. Yeah. And long story short, I got locked up for 2 murders in possession of a weapon. It was the first time being incarcerated.
How long did you have to do for that?
I laid up for a couple of months, and then everybody got together, bailed me out, and then I went to trial on one case, and I beat it with 5 eyewitnesses against me. It wasn't. I really didn't do this one, to be honest with you. I just happened to be the face that they recognized as part of that crew because I was kind of like maybe the leader.
Yeah.
So they pointed me out. It was easy. I guess.
You just kind of took the blame for it?
Yeah.
So you ended up beating the case, though?
I ended up being the case. And that, I think, was this, I don't know how to say it, the stepping stone of really getting recognized because now guys were starting to, my guy Nicky and them were starting hanging out in Mulberry Street with the underboss of the Gambino crime family, a lot of captains and all that. And he's telling them my story. They were this kid, good kid, 20 years old, I was at the time, went to prison, got locked up, kept his mouth shut, you know, all those kind of things. Went to trial like a couple of years later, beat the case. And I think that was my boost into the, I guess you call it the, I don't know how to say it, but my claim to fame in the Gambino crime family, because after that, I was paraded around as the up-and-coming star.
Yeah. How long did that lifestyle last? 20 to, how long were you running, you know, with these?
From 20 to probably, you know, in and out, I would say a good 20-something years, but then there was about 7 of those years that I ended up getting involved with the drug business, and the drugs got involved with my business.
Yeah.
And then
I like the way you said that, because that's kind of how that works.
It does, you know, and I lost everything, lost a lot of respect. Freebasing came around, and I thought that was an easier fix. I wouldn't be so addicted to cocaine because that was my big thing, staying up for days at a time.
Yeah, I went through that too.
I went through freebasing, and I would go to sleep that same night, so I thought it was better. Long story short, I become a crackhead. That's the motto. That was the cheapest high I could possibly get.
Did that end up, and I think you did kind of say this, did that kind of mess up your reputation in the crime family? Like,
Without a doubt, yeah.
They almost kind of say...
They were very ashamed of me. I mean, here I am being paraded around with the bosses being introduced to bosses. Now everybody's hearing that kid that you brought around in the streets, a crackhead.
Yeah, that had to have hurt.
It hurt them probably more than me at that point in time because I just accepted who I was.
So how did you end up getting out of that whole lifestyle?
Well, in 1997, I had a couple of cases pending. In 94, I got an offer from these wise guys. Tell Robert he needs to go. My mom was living in Florida. He needs to clean himself up and go to Florida. And they paid for a ticket for me to go to Florida. And I think I knew what they were telling me, that I better get myself together. So I did. And then in 95, they came down there and gave me some stuff to do. And then before you know it, I'm getting everything back together again. And I decided to get high again. So I lose all that. And then I'm told to go to New York and go into a rehab. My mom couldn't even deal with me anymore. That's how bad I really got with the crack. And I'm on my way to New York to get clean, and I meet somebody, and I started getting high. I never went to the rehab center. And that's in 96. In 96, I was completely homeless, living in the streets of Brooklyn. I ended up copping for an undercover agent. Now, they said I sold him the drugs, but trust me, the shape that I was in.
You're like, I didn't sell
I wasn't
anybody.
selling drugs. I was just trying to get high.
Yeah.
So an undercover guy gives me $20, said, go get me crack and you could keep half of it and give me half. And I did it, and it was undercover, so I get arrested for that. They bailed me out on that case.
Your guys did again?
My guys bailed me out again on that case. I guess they felt sorry for me. Bailed me out. And I'm living in the streets. And while I was in Florida doing stuff for them, there was somebody that was wired up. So now I have the feds looking for me from Florida in New York City.
Ugh.
Long story short, 1997, somebody gives me up where my whereabouts are because I jumped bail. I never went back to court for anything. And the feds never caught up with me at that point in time. And I think I called the warrant officers today my two angels.
Because they got you out of that lifestyle.
Because that's the last time I had a drink and a drug.
That's cool.
January 23rd, 1997.
That's when they found you?
That's when they found me, brought me to Rikers Island. I know I'm not going to get any bail. I know I'm in a ton of trouble, facing a lot of time with the feds in Florida, the state of New York, dealing drugs. Been in and out of prison numerous times. It was probably my fourth or fifth felony conviction.
Yeah, and with the point, I don't know if they had the point system back then in the feds. Did they have
The feds had the point system, yeah. The feds had the point system, but the state of New York had a persistent felony offender.
Almost like a career criminal?
They give you 20, career criminal is what I was considered. Yeah, because I did three state bids and obviously at the end of my stay in that lifestyle, 2 federal bids. So.
It's so crazy to see how drugs can because I lived that same lifestyle for a long time, and it's so hard to see someone lose, to be so high up in where they want to be, or, and then just to lose everything and just not be able to shake it. Like it's so common too.
Well, you can look at the story of Richard Pryor and a couple of athletes too that got succumbed by the drugs, and millionaires high up there and don't have anything left.
It's pretty common. It's a sad story. So after Rikers, what happens next? Do you go? When did you? What I'm excited about getting to is when did you Did you have a relationship with the Lord growing up? Like, did you know Jesus growing up?
I knew about him. I was raised Roman Catholic, and I'm not saying anything against Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
I'm talking about this Roman Catholic. I understood he's up there, I'm down here. Someday we get together and we'll find out what's going to happen to me. That was the extent of it. So I didn't look at me committing crimes as a sin. I didn't even know what sin was. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I knew that I was breaking the law, but a lot of people
me
were.
neither.
So,
I didn't.
So if you don't have an understanding of sin, that you don't see it as sin. So
I think mine was that I knew of God. I just didn't have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
So it was more of just like he was just someone I thought up there I actually thought he was always mad at me, and that he was always angry at me, because I just was doing wrong. So I just tried to ignore it as much as possible. It was kind of, and when I went to prison, it was the absolute best thing that ever happened to me.
This last time was the best thing that happened to me too. So now I'm in prison. I know I'm not going to get bail. Being in and out of prison, I have a system, and one thing is I need to get a good attorney to get me out of the mess that I got myself into, because I did a lot of time, but I did very short things because I got good attorneys to work out deals for me throughout my past. So I know that. So now, I don't have anything. I'm living in the street, so I don't have money. So I'm calling up people, seeing if people that might have owed me a favor or things that I might have did for them to help me get an attorney, and everybody's shining me on that. Trying to get money for commissary so I could live as comfortable as I am while I'm incarcerated.
Yeah.
And I'm just getting a lot of no's, man. Like everybody's just saying. What end up later on, what I realized was everybody felt I was better off in prison than out in the streets, because I was destroying myself out in the streets.
And that might have been true.
It was.
Yeah, it might have been true. And I've had friends in family even recently end up in jail, and I know people all the time that reach out to me and say, "Oh, my son just got locked up," or "This happened." And a lot of times my advice now is good. Like, that's probably the absolute best place they can be. For the next however long they're in there, you can sleep at night knowing that your son's not going to overdose, now knowing that you're not going to get a call at midnight that he's dead.
But there's those stories that and their stories. It's not really true. I mean, some instances they are where, they're in prison and they're going to get raped or they're going to get, all these other stories that you hear.
I mean, I was in prison for 7.5 or almost 7 years, and I never saw. I mean, no, granted, I wasn't in any crazy supermax type prisons, but that's very few and far between. That's not like a common thing in the prisons I was at.
Well,
Rikers might be a little different.
Well, I mean, you would see stuff that most of it was in Rikers Island was like living in the streets. To be honest with you,
Yeah,
it was no different. There were drugs being sold, people getting robbed, shanked, you name it. It was going on in there, but the lifestyle. Anybody that was involved with that kind of a lifestyle that I was, regardless of what, you didn't go with another male.
Yeah.
You understand? So I don't understand the rape part of raping another male.
Yeah.
Because how we believed if you did that, then you're a fag yourself.
Then you were already, that was a...
And I don't know if those are the right words to say right now, but that's how we looked at it back in the day. So we didn't see that. We didn't see a lot of guys looking to go with other guys.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
They wanted to rob them to get whatever, if they came in with jewelry, their commissary, so this way they could buy drugs. That was the whole thing, because there was a lot of drugs being sold.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there are a lot of drugs in prison. That's one thing that's for sure. And it's coming in. It's going to get its way in there because where there's a supply and demand.
When I was in federal prison, locked up back in the 82, I was having people bring me.
Yeah.
And sometimes I was getting high right on the visiting room.
No, that's still happening today. Yeah. And especially, when you can sell a pack of cigarettes for $10 a cigarette, and the guards are willing to bring that, the guards are one bringing that stuff in, a lot of times, but, that's neither here nor there. That's a whole different, so what happens, what's next? Do you get out of Rikers before you form a relationship with the Lord, or is that part of it?
No, that's part of it. So now I'm calling up everybody. Now, when I was getting high, in 93, my girlfriend gave birth to my daughter, and I was in her life for about 7 weeks. Then I decided to go out and get high one more time. And the old saying that one is too many, 1,000 is never enough. Yeah. And that's how it played out. And that I thought I was going to go out for that night. And before you know it, I'm out. So the mom thought it was best that I'm not in my daughter's life, living that lifestyle. And the shame and the guilt of even knowing that made me just run even further to get high, because I didn't want to deal with it anymore. So the more I got high, the less I cared about anybody else. Crack became the love of my life. That was the bottom line. So now I'm in Rikers Island, and my daughter's mother, I'm calling her, we're still in a relationship. Not in a relationship, but we still have...
a mutual respect.
Yes, for each other at that point in time. And she's allowing me to talk to my daughter. So after everybody's refusing me, saying, hey, there's not much we could do for you, just getting a lot of brush-offs. One girl told me, why don't you go read the Bible? And I'm saying, okay. Why don't you just tell me don't call you anymore, something like that. Because, I'm looking for money. I'm not looking for the Bible right now. And my daughter, I'm talking to my daughter, and she was crying. And I said, Brianna, why are you crying? And she said, because you don't come and see me. You didn't have to say anything more than that there, because now I know I'm facing 20 years. Here's this little girl wants to see her daddy, and I'm not going to be able to see her. And at that point in time, my heart just shattered, and I started crying. But I didn't want the inmates to see me crying, so I slammed down the phone. I ran back to my cell, and somebody just mentioned it was true, because I only knew the Our Father, the Hail Marys, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when I ran back to my cell, I said, God, if you're really to have somebody kill me or change me, I don't want to live with this pain anymore. And I might have did a couple of Our Fathers, but I think God was answering the sincerity of my heart at that point in time, that I just didn't want to live like this anymore.
That's all. Did you feel like there was like a change in you from that day forward?
I like to say that, but I didn't understand any of it. I just, God had to work in me the way that I could know it's him working in my life, so it wasn't like flash of lightning or anything like that. But I started reading the Bible. Now, I used to have a whole bunch of Ludlam, I forget his name, but anyway. espionage guy who wrote books, and I have a bunch of his books. And I read a little bit of the Bible, and then I read my espionage books, and I just felt something inside me saying, you don't need those books, you need this book. So I started reading the Bible a little bit more. And you know what was happening is I felt everybody else, my family, everybody was just abandoning me. Nobody cared about me. Nobody really loved me. That's how I felt. I'm not saying that was true.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. But I'm reading how much God loves me.
That's so good, yeah.
You know? So it attracted me more to it. And I just felt something inside. I said, get rid of those books. So I gave all my books away and just started reading the Bible. From that point on, it was nothing but Christianity in my life.
So you never used again after that? Oh yeah, you said that. That's awesome.
No.
So how long did you end up having to do on that bid?
I did about 29 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's enough time to sit you straight.
Yeah, I
through
did
almost
with
3
the
years.
state, and then the feds came and got me, and then I finished my time in Sandstone, Minnesota.
Yeah, they sent.
But every place that they were bringing me to me, there was more Bible studies. I got baptized, rebaptized. I was baptized as a baby. I got baptized in the Indian River County Jail in Florida.
That's awesome. I got baptized in prison too.
Yeah. So, and then I go to Sandstone, Minnesota, and there's a group of guys. We're just praying together, and there's all kinds of different Bible studies going on at that point in time.
That's powerful. Yeah. So then when you get out, how did you get into, how did you decide that you want to get into ministry? No, I know that you wouldn't call yourself like a pastor, but I mean, or maybe you would. I don't know.
Well, I was a pastor for a little bit, for an associate pastor for Fellowship of Joy Church. But I'm going to share this here because I decided to cooperate with the government. So after my time's up, the marshals picked me up, and the reason why I share this is it's really important for me more than anybody probably, is to let me know what it really meant to be born again. Well, God, in the beginning, once I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior, in that prison cell,
yeah,
what God did for me was wipe my slate clean. All my sins are forgiven.
That's good.
I don't have to take my past with me anymore. I get a new identity in Christ Jesus. So what God did in the supernatural with me, the government did in the natural with me. They gave me
a new chance, a second chance at life.
They gave me a new name, a new identity. If you look me up today, you can't find anything from my past since 1999. So I look at it as Robert Borelli was born again in 1999 physically, and then 1997 spiritually. And I like to compare them because when you get involved with the government, the Witness Protection Program, you can't take nothing. They take everything from you. No pictures, nothing from your past could come with you. And you start a whole new life. And that's what God did in my spiritual
See, I haven't
life.
even got that to that extent of the book as far as like knowing about the whole details of it. But I love that. And I love the correlation between how both of your new lives kind of started at the same time. Yeah. Like, it's funny how God will work, you know?
Yeah. You look at my life, or I look at my life, look back at it, and God's been trying to get my attention for a long time.
I agree with that.
And finally,
my
he put me in a
too.
place where he finally got my attention. And
That's awesome.
Was in 1997.
So whose idea was it to put all your story in a book?
Well, just to let you know, see this book? I did not write this book. I can't even write my name. H. Scott Hunt wrote the book. He's a first-time author. He heard my story. He said, it needs to be in a book. And I said, okay, what do we need to do? And he said, we'll sit down. And we did this for 3.5 years. Prayed over it, met maybe twice a week, and got the book together after 3.5 years. So it's called The Witness. I was a witness for the government. Now I'm a witness for Jesus Christ.
I love that. Yeah. That's awesome. So what are your plans next? Like, what do you see in the future going on with all your stuff?
Well, there's a possibility that we're going to be doing a script, maybe doing an episodic kind of story of my life. We'll see where that goes. I'm on YouTube now, so we're putting stuff out there on YouTube.
How do if someone wants to watch it on YouTube, how would they find your channel?
They go to YouTube at Robert Borelli Stories. Robert, R-O-B-E-R-T, Borelli, B-O-R-E-L-L-I, Stories.
And is that the same way that they can find you on like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that?
They can find me through Robert Borelli. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd be on all that. But also I have a website, Robert Borelli Ministries. You can go to my website also.
And if you're interested in getting the book, which literally I'm almost done, but it's you can get it at robertborelliministries.com. And I believe if he's still doing this, he'll sign a copy and send it to you. I know that it did say at one point that you were willing to do that, to sign the copies and send them out, right? Is it,
Yeah.
If I just put extra work on you?
No. I signed the books and I mail them myself. So
the cool
it's for a donation that you make on my website. Make the donation. I believe it's $25. You could give more. And if you don't have the $25 and you just want to make a donation, please just make a donation. Nobody gets any money for the donation except the ministry itself. It helps us to be able to do the things that we're doing, go out and speaking in rehabs, and we speak in churches, we speak in camps, you name it. I get invited to a lot of places to share.
I love that. And one thing I really like about you, Mr. Borelli, is you're not seeking the attention of doing this. Like, honestly, I think you as a person are being almost like put in a good way, but pushed to do this. Share your story. Like, you're very humble is what I'm trying to say. Okay. You're not doing this for the attention of the look at me, look at me. I really feel in my spirit that you're doing this to help other people and to see who your story can help. Am I right? Yeah.
Well, this is how I look at my life. All I want to do is let people know that it's never too late for a new beginning.
That's good.
No matter where they're stuck, no matter what's going on in their life, they don't have to stay stuck.
That's good.
And my new beginning started on my hands and knees crying out to Jesus. All I want to do is introduce people to Jesus Christ, who changed and saved my life. That's all I want to do.
That's so good. So I like to ask everybody this question at the end. Normally I would have given you this in advance, but you're a good speaker. I don't think you have any problem with it. Is if you could go back and give little Robert at 16 years old one piece of advice, what do you think that would be?
That's a tough question because I don't know what advice I would give young Robert. This is what I would tell young Robert is respect your parents. Listen to your parents. Respect them. Because a lot of times I didn't. I loved them, but I still had to, I was kind of like Frank Sinatra. I had to do it my way,
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think that's a really good answer. And I would actually really agree with that in my life too. Because I had an amazing father. And at 16, I knew everything in the world. And I didn't allow him to be able to tell me anything.
Yes.
And I think therefore I caused a lot of heartache on my family if I would have just listened to my dad. Because, at 16, we don't realize sometimes that, first of all, what a blessing it is to have a father at 16 years old, because there's a lot of kids nowadays that don't have a dad around or is not worth getting advice from. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I just really wish that, so that's a great answer, because I really wish I would have taken that advice for myself at 16 years old. Man, thank you so much for coming on the show and just kind of sharing your heart. I love what you're doing. I think that a lot of people will be impacted in a positive way of seeing and how vulnerable you are with your story and the drug addiction, and willing to put it all out there and not try to hide it. Like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of guys who lived a lifestyle like yours that are doing similar stuff to you, but are leaving out a lot of chunks of
Yeah,
of the
but
story.
for me, I want to be as transparent as possible. I don't want to leave, when I share my testimony, I don't want to have anybody say, well, he's didn't do this or he didn't say this here. He's trying to hide something. I want to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah.
Because you never know who might be going through something that they need to hear.
That's so good.
Number one,
Yeah.
And the other thing, we'll be having a fundraiser.
Okay.
for our ministry on October 11th over at T-Cal Church, the Community Lake Ridge Church.
Yeah.
October 11th. We open up the doors at 5:30. It's a Saturday. And we start the event at 6. And then it ends at 8 o'clock. So if anybody's in the Mansfield area, we'll have other things out there on our Facebook page.
Is it just to show up and pay when you get there? Or is it something that you need to get a reserve ticket ahead of time?
You could pay when you get there, but I'm hoping that people reserve this so I know how much food to get.
Okay. How would they, is that on the website?
It's going to be. We're not there yet because we're about 100 days away.
Okay.
So within the next week or two, we should have some stuff out there.
Awesome. And that's robertborelliministries.com.
Yes.
That's awesome. Man, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being on your show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is really cool. And anybody listening, I want you to always remember that you're loved and you're forgiven and there's nothing you can do about it.
Amen. Yes.